Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KidBadger.com, out here today for another gear review, and today talking about my experience this very first season skiing with my Salomon AT setup. Context is important. Yes, I just said my very first season up here skiing. Growing up as a kid, I ended up going up to the snow occasionally. I probably ended up as a teenager going snowboarding like half a dozen times, and probably about the same cross-country skiing because we didn't go very much. So I was usually the kid wearing jeans up there. Usually it was really cold and wet. But fast forward, ended up moving up to North Idaho where it's rad. And one of my good buddies, Bill Rapier of Amtech Shooting, was like, hey, you need to learn how to ski so we can go on rad adventures. So I was like, all right, I'm in. Let's do this thing. So with that, I ended up picking up this Alpine Touring Setup by Salomon, and I've been putting some miles on it. I originally got this, I want to say right before Christmas of 2020, and probably my first time kind of on this setup was right around Christmas time, New Year's. Ended up actually coming up to Lookout Pass with my buddy Bill Rapier, skinned all the way to the top, because it is a Alpine Touring setup with skins, and ended up skiing down. It was a pretty rough go for my very first attempt on skis, but made it down. And since then, I've logged a lot of miles on this setup, whether it's actually going downhill on mountains or backcountry, skiing up mountains and back down, or even just kind of backcountry touring as far as just point A to point B, going on adventures in the mountains. So what does this Salomon AT Alpine Touring setup consist of? Right here are the Mountain Explorer 95 skis, and with that have some Salomon skins. Pretty much crucial if you want to do anything other than downhill. And on these I have the Salomon shift bindings, the MNC 13 I believe it is, and they basically shift. They convert from something that you can use going backcountry, like cross country, where your heel can actually lift up, everything like that, or you can go ahead and lock them in for downhill use, keeping really nice stable platform so you don't end up busting your legs going downhill. In addition to that, I also have the S-Lab mountain boots, which I'm not going to take off because it's the only shoes I have right now, and these Salomon X North poles. I will say the only thing in this whole setup that I really changed or modified at all was getting some powder baskets on these poles. Game changer, especially going into the backcountry. And then also right here have my driver helmet, also by Salomon. Pretty sweet, definitely bounced my face off the snow, and I'm still here, so I guess it's working. Right here, this ski is set up for downhill, whereas this one is set up for cross country. To convert it, simply lift this as walk, move it up here to ski, locks those in, lock that down. Back here, move it from walk over to ski. Conversely, this, move it back to walk, move this down to ski, and now you can either clip in for cross country or lock in for downhill. These boots are obviously loose right now because I was skinning up the mountain, but they actually have laces which you can go ahead and cinch up if you'd like. I use them sometimes. You have pull handles on either side. Go ahead and get yourself out of these. Strap there, latch there, latch there. Again, both of which are loose. And the beauty of being able to articulate your ankle, or if you're gonna go downhill, lock it in. Pretty clutch. With that said, what has been my experience with all this? Well, over the course of, I guess if we look at it from the point of more or less New Year's to now, first weekend of April, not terribly long. This stuff has been a blast. I've probably got over a good 3 weeks on the mountain with this stuff, and it's been really cool. It definitely, for me personally, again, coming into this, having never skied before, aside from like a handful of times cross-country skiing, it's been really awesome. On the one hand, downhill skiing's a lot of fun, like a lot of fun. Started out, I'm just like, oh, let me please just not crash. And then by the time now, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, where can we find jumps to go off of? Because it is a lot of fun. And yeah, just rolling down mountains. But at the same time, I actually really appreciate the mobility that comes with it. Being able to go just out on adventures, whether it's trying to climb up to peaks or just trying to access remote places that otherwise you couldn't, or you could probably use snowshoes, which are terrible. Don't get me wrong. They work and you can get from point A to point B, but this is where it's at. Don't get me wrong. Again, I used to be like, oh yeah, snowshoes, they're great. And they are, because there's zero buy-in. Like, you can come from Florida, put snowshoes on, and in a couple days, you're snowshoeing with the best of them. But skis, like, no, there's skill involved. And there's definitely been a learning curve this year, but it's been really cool. And being able to go access places that otherwise you would not be able to access, and then turn around, lock everything in with shift bindings, as well as these boots, cruise down mountains. That is really cool. I actually ended up going up to a peak with Chris Simmons from Simmons Mountain Adventures. I'm terrible at this. But we ended up going up to this peak, skinned all the way to the top, turned around, cut tracks going down. Beautiful. And you're not going to get that experience, obviously, on snowshoes, or if you have a purely downhill setup. Granted, you want to get to the top, you're going to have to earn it. One thing I will mention, kind of with respect to progressing skill-wise and stuff like that over this first season, something that's been incredibly vital is being able to go out with some good friends, whether it's my buddy, Bill Rapier, or going out with Chris. Basically going with people that are better than you, to include my other buddy, Swede, who happens to be Swedish, pretty much born with skis on, and being able to go with people like that, they basically push you. They make you go harder and faster. And that's a good thing. So rather than just always being really comfortable, kind of get pushed outside of that comfort. And with that, end up improving just kind of across the board. Whether it's little techniques with respect to the backcountry, like just simple things like, hey, here's how you negotiate something along these lines. Or just how to go fast and hard and go off jumps. It's been really, really cool. To that end also, this year, my youngest son, Ira, he's skied for a couple years now, even though I haven't. And my buddy Swede ended up spending, I don't know, probably like maybe an hour with him. Incredible to see the marked improvement just across that short period of time, from going like pizza wedge to actual like awesome turns. And with respect to my experience and learning, getting better with respect to skiing, it's one of those things where, ironically, I feel like it's probably taken me like 40 years or so to figure it out. But if you want to learn to do something, what you do is you actually just listen to someone that can do it better than you as they explain how to do it, and then you just do that. I know it sounds ridiculous on its face, but so many times like ego, other things get in the way, and it's like, oh yeah, I got this. It's like, maybe you don't. But when someone's like, hey, do this, you're like, oh, so literally all I need to do is those things you said, and now I can turn. It's like, oh, okay, cool, like, let's do this. And so it's been really fun just kind of progressing through this season and getting better at skiing. And across that stretch of time from that very first run up Lookout Pass on skins, and then turning around and coming down for the first time with my buddy Bill, definitely have progressed. Came quite a ways over these last 3 or 4 months or whatever it's been, to finally getting the last day of the season up there at Lookout Pass and having a lot of fun up there. For me, the biggest thing with this gear is mobility. I like to be able to go cool places, and these allow just that. Being able to throw skins on, cruise up mountains, tear skins, go down mountains. This is a lot of fun. Is there anything in my experience that's been kind of a drawback, things I don't really care for? One, I will say, these boots that I got initially, not comfortable at all. So what can you do? You can basically go get them blown out. They basically heat them up, put your foot in there, and they can pack things around it, essentially form it to your foot. Does a really good job. I did that. After that, it was good. It was really good. They were comfortable after that. Other things that I will say though is kind of depending on use. So by way of example, if you're going to spend a lot of time kind of touring out in the backcountry, and there's a lot of little ups and downs, this might not be the very best setup. I say that because after 20 miles with Bill Rapier and a lot of little ups and downs, the place where this does not shine is little ups and downs. Reason being is you either keep your skins on, in which case there's a lot of drag on the downhill, so you're missing out on a lot of glide, or you rip your skins. And then even if it's a fairly gentle grade up, it is a lot of work to get up without skins, versus something that is like kind of like more of the touring side, where maybe it has like some fish scale, like built-in skins basically underfoot, which makes a huge difference. My buddy Bill had those, but then we turned around and went down, and just even that little bit under there created a huge amount of drag, and I would way outpace them on pretty much anything because I would just get way more glide. So there's definitely kind of a balance there. Something I haven't tried is, I think they make basically a wax that you can put on underfoot, makes it a little bit sticky so that when you have those kind of slight uphills, rather than having to throw skins back on, you basically have that glide. So I don't know, 6 one way, half dozen the other. Those are the only things I've had with respect to this setup that kind of ran into. Who do I think this setup would be good for? Anyone that wants to go do rad stuff in the mountains. So much flexibility with respect to being able to access places you otherwise wouldn't. It's basically kind of jack of all trades. Now, granted, there's no free lunch. So on the one hand, you could probably get a more tuned, like downhill dedicated setup, or you could get a really lightweight, kind of like Nordic cross-country setup. But neither one of those is this. And I think this does an amazing job of basically bridging that gap from being able to access the backcountry or just lock everything in, burn down hills. Again, overall, I've had an incredible time with this. And aside from this gear, like bigger picture, skill set wise, if you have never skied, or any other skill for that matter, I encourage you to take it up. There's something really fun and gratifying about learning something new. Like something where you're not comfortable. It's like, oh yeah, like I know how to do that, muscle memory, cool, we're good. And it's like, no, like you actually need to be very present and pay attention, especially depending on where you are, because there might be consequences. And skiing for me has been a really incredible journey as far as just getting to go and learn and try something new. So this setup has been rad, and I would encourage you guys to try something new, to include maybe skiing. But if you appreciate my content and want to support it, I greatly appreciate it. Whether it's liking and sharing videos or going over to Teespring, maybe picking up some shirts like this sweet one from the Coast to Coast Tour 2020, or going over to kitbadger.com, picking up KBAT target pads, stickers, patches, or supporting me directly through Patreon. All of that stuff helps. And if you have questions for me, happy to answer them. Probably not in the comments section, but over on Patreon, active Discord over there, happy to answer your questions there. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time. Made it. Nailed it.
I knew I was going too slow.